Hey, welcome to Stop It, the podcast for the mom who's over the all or nothing mindset, stuck in burnout, and tired of thinking her body is the problem. Hey, I'm Emily Erb, exercise physiologist, mom of two, and your no fluff coach who will absolutely call you out, but always with love. I overshare, I keep it real, and I'm here to help you break free from restriction, rebuild trust with your body, and finally create results that last without losing your mind or your favorite foods. So if you've ever thought, I should be further along or I just need more discipline, stop it. This is your space for real talk, real tools, and real change. Let's do it. Hey, I'm Emily. Welcome back to Stop It. I'm super excited to be here. As always, I love creating this space for us to chat and for us to grow together and for you to be on this journey together with me. And I actually just got done with a good cry sesh. One of my newer things that I've been doing the last, I would say, last 6 months or so is just really creating some space for me to take a look back at some things in my past, especially my childhood, things that have hurt me or I've hurt other people. And when I just feel moved to think about it, like if a thought pops up and then it kind of turns into, oh, I totally forgot this happened. And I realize, oh, that really hurt my feelings or that really sucked. And the old version of me, the child version of me, would just kind of push it down and ignore it. And what I've been realizing in this growth journey that I am on is that whatever you resist will persist. And it pops up in your life until you are able to look at it, whatever that is, whatever trauma or hardships or things that happened to you that you really weren't at a position or capable of facing or taking a look at. And I'm realizing as I continue to grow and expand. And I do this because I want to show up in the best version of me, not just for my kids or not just for Big Kev, but for myself too. Because when I am growing and expanding and stepping into that higher version of myself, even though it's really uncomfortable, each time I go through a next level, I just feel so alive and aligned in my life. And it was something that I was searching for so long. And it was actually one of the things that led me to start wanting to lose weight. And that's the topic that I want to share with you today. How I lost 20 pounds and I still didn't feel enough. And I'm wondering if I am not alone in that. I remember having so many conversations with my girlfriends over the years and other women that I would work with, and we would have conversations about their body and their weight. And we all had one common thing that when we look back at pictures of our former selves, we always feel like, dang it, I really wish that I enjoyed the body I was in then because damn, I looked so good and I didn't even see it. I didn't even enjoy it because I was always stuck in this place of it was never enough. And I wonder if you who are listening have felt the same way. And maybe you haven't, and that's fantastic. I love that for you. And for the ones that maybe still do, or are creating awareness of, wow, yeah, I actually have felt that, or I do feel that. I just want to share you're not alone in that and you're not crazy. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't need to be fixed. You're not broken. We're going to get into this. We're going to get into how someone like myself who could lose 20 freaking pounds and still not feel enough. And so we're going to go over what you think weight loss is going to give you and We're going to then go into why it can't. So, a lot of women I see, including myself, I thought that weight loss was going to give me so much peace and freedom around food and not comparing myself anymore to other women. I thought it was going to give me more confidence. I thought it was going to just magically solve all of my problems and I would just always be happy and joyful. And spoiler alert, I wasn't and it didn't work. It's not what I was getting from weight loss from the 20 pounds. And then I'm going to go into why it can't, why this happens, and why you're never going to find those things in the scale or when the scale moves down when you lose weight. And then we're going to go over how to start to shift from not feeling enough to enough. And I'm really, really excited because this has been a journey that I have been on, and I've gone through this with my body. And now I'm going through it again, but just in a different way with my business. And it's just so interesting how we as humans will cycle through a lot of similar lessons. And even when we work through one lesson, it might be a similar lesson, but just applied differently in your life. And you guys know that I fully believe that life is always happening for you. And the reason why we have problems, it's not to make our life harder or more miserable, because that's not the point of life. It's so that we can grow. And if they weren't painful, we wouldn't look at them. And I've had a lot of painful lessons these last couple of months. And I found myself, complaining about it and asking why. And thankfully, I have a lot of support and mentorship and people to help me work through that and reframe it. And also, just kind of my inner coaching that I've learned and built with some tools has helped too. But okay, so let's get into it. Let's talk about how that happens. Like, when we look back at our former body, maybe we take us back 10, 20, 30 years, whatever that is. And why were we just never satisfied? Like, and why do we feel like, oh my gosh, I would kill to have that body now? And what I realized when I lost 20 pounds, I did. Initially, guys, I felt amazing. I definitely had more energy. I could fit into my clothes. That was super exciting. Um, and I feel like it did give me some confidence because I was finally taking action that I could be consistent with, and it was working. I was getting those dopamine hits from the scale moving down. And I did feel good until I didn't, until I started thinking, well, actually, I should probably lose more. That was my initial thinking of maybe that's why I still don't feel enough. Like maybe that's why I didn't feel happier like I thought I was going to be, or I didn't feel as confident as what I thought I was going to be, or more consistently. I didn't think that I was going to still compare myself to other women. And I was doing all of those things. And I didn't realize why. But after I started working with a mentor, which was totally a game changer for me because I didn't know this stuff. Like, I was never taught about self worth. I just wasn't. And I'm sure most of you listening weren't either. And I didn't understand what that even meant. And I didn't even realize that I was tying my self worth to my results. And so, what I was doing is I was basing my self worth. And when I say feeling enough, that's what I mean about self worth. Whenever I didn't feel enough, it was because I was questioning my self-worth. And the reason why I was always questioning my self-worth, regardless if I was 20 pounds heavier or 20 pounds lighter, it was because I was attaching my results to who I was as a person. And so just because that number went down, it didn't repair my relationship with myself, with who I thought I was. And I didn't realize how little I thought of myself. And when I think about that, it does make me really sad. Like that inner child of me totally makes me sad. And also at the same time, I'm so grateful for it because it led me to figuring out, well, how do I stop doing that? And you're probably thinking the same thing. It's like, okay, well, yeah, I get what you're saying. I, I could check off, and this doesn't even have to do with your weight as a mom, as a wife. You could create a checklist and you could check everything off your list. And at the end of the night, you go to bed and you're thinking, oh, I got so much done. I'm so exhausted and I still don't feel like I did enough. That means I'm not enough. And it's just because we haven't ever learned about what self-worth is and how do we build that over time? Like, what does that even mean? I didn't even know. Listen, I had no idea I struggled with it. I just thought it was normal. I thought it was normal for moms to always feel burnt out and to always feel like they're not enough because it's talked about all the time and it's so normalized. And what I want to share with you is that it's not normal. It's it is normal, but it's not normal to always feel less than or to always feel like you're not enough. And from this whole conversation that we have today, I really want you to take away that you have always been enough. You always will be enough. And it doesn't matter what you look like, how much you weigh, what you accomplished, what you didn't accomplish. It doesn't change your self worth ever because your self worth is innate. It's not something that you earn. And if that really feels triggering to you, then I want you to start to put that belief that you might have around self worth and put it on your children or someone that you love. And if you start to evoke a lot of emotion from that, having them think that, oh my gosh, like I would never want my daughter or my son or my sister or my mom to ever feel like they're not enough because they are. It doesn't matter what they do or what they don't do, they're always enough. So we know then that that is true, right? Our self worth does not have to be earned. But with so much years of conditioning and beliefs put on us, we have normalized this. We normalize this as what happens when you're a mom and not ever feeling enough. And it's something that I want to just talk about. And I want moms to know that we don't have to continue staying in that. We don't have to continue feeling less than or not enough. And so I'm curious to see what were some of the things that you thought that weight loss was going to give you, right? Was it peace, maybe, and freedom around food, right? Where you're no longer, okay, I lost weight and now I'm going to magically feel at peace with food. And that food noise is magically just going to disappear, right? That I'm not going to stress about eating a burger with my family or a piece of cake at birthday parties. And that you're no longer going to compare yourself to other women, right? How many of us do that? I remember one of my patients, they were in our weight loss program and they were making a ton of progress, putting the work in, taking action steps. And they had a friend who was taking a GLP-1 and losing weight a lot faster. And I remember her feeling bad. I remember her feeling jealous. I remember her, and then she felt wrong for feeling that because it was her friend and she wants her friend to be successful and she wanted to be that successful and she was struggling with where she was at and she was feeling less than. And so yeah, I want you to start to think about like, what do you think weight loss is going to give you? And I love asking this question, especially when I have women come to me and they want weight loss. Most women come to me because they want weight loss, which, listen, I am not saying it's a bad thing or a good thing if women want to lose weight. I think what you want is good enough and you never have to justify it. I did want to lose weight because I did physically want to be able to wear the clothes that I want and feel good in them. And a lot of the women that come to me have that same thing where they want to be in pictures with their kids and not cringe looking at that. Or they want to be able to enjoy pizza with their family without thinking that they screwed everything up and they have to start over on Monday. And for health reasons. Health reasons is a big reason why a lot of women tend to want to lose weight. And sometimes, they'll say it really isn't about the number on the scale or what they look like. They just want it for their health. And I'm like, okay, I love that so much. And what do you think having better health is going to give you, right? We start to get to the root of what they really, really want. And it's a really cool process. I love coaching women through that. I think it's such an important step, especially when you're setting goals for yourself. And if you don't have, and I've talked about this before, but repetition is the mother of all skill. The more you hear it, the more that it just creates a new belief system in you that will serve you better. But really just getting to what do you want from it, right? And especially if you're losing 20 pounds and you're still not feeling enough, right? Like let's get to the root of what's happening there, what's behind the scenes. And the reason why it never will feel enough is because you're not going to change how you see yourself on the scale. And that might sound a little confusing. That's okay. We're going to get more into that. But when we're tying our self worth to our results, when we're attaching our self worth to our results, right? The less we weigh, the better the woman we are, right? The more worthy we are. If the number's lower, oh, that means we're doing such a great job. But we're realizing that like it doesn't matter what we actually weigh, that feeling of not feeling enough is still there. It hasn't changed. And it's because it's the way you view yourself. And the only way that we can shift that is in our identity. It's who you think you are inside, right? Like, who do you think you are? What kind of person do you think you are? And that is the only way that you're going to be able to start to shift out of not feeling enough to feeling enough is to start to shift your identity to more of a more empowering identity. So I'm going to use just an example of I use this with actually Big Kev because when I was learning all of this identity and belief stuff, I remember I was like, what does that even mean? And it took me a little while to get it. But I used this example for him the other day. I said, okay, so let's say that someone wants to exercise. Okay. And listen, they have all the knowledge. They know how to exercise. They've done it before, but they're not doing it. Does this sound familiar at all? Right? Like you know what to do and you're not doing it. Okay. So here's this person. They want to exercise. They know what to do. They're not doing it. They identify as a lazy person. Okay. So if someone identifies as a lazy person, how could it ever be possible for them to be consistent with exercise? Because do people who view themselves as lazy exercise? No, They don't. They might for short periods of time, but that's never going to be a lasting habit for them if they continue to view themselves as a lazy person. And I've heard this so many times and I hear it a lot. I'm lazy, right? And so whenever we put the word I'm and then we finish that sentence, that is part of your identity. That is who you're identifying yourself as. And the thing with your identity is that the strongest force in the human personality is to be consistent to who you already think you are. So if someone identifies as being lazy, they will do all of the action steps or lack of action steps to stay consistent to seeing themselves as being lazy. Okay. So sometimes we have to like let this sink in and let our brains like understand this because we're going to be breaking some really big beliefs here. And your brain totally sees that as, that is a threat to survival. And your brain is constantly seeking pleasure and pain. And between the two, your brain will always avoid pain over pleasure if it has to pick between the two. So, it's okay if this doesn't make sense right now. I highly encourage you to re-listen and get curious about this identity and how important it is in feeling better, right? And feeling enough. And so your identity is going to be the number one important part of shifting out from not feeling enough to enough. Because if you already feel like you're not enough, that's part of your identity, right? I'm not enough. And so if we continue to say I'm not enough or it's I'm never enough, you're going to continue taking those action steps or lack of and start to continue to create that story for yourself, which isn't true. It is not true. And when we continue to tie, I continued to tie my self worth to the number on the scale for a really long time until I finally looked at this lesson because it was so painful for me because I couldn't quite understand how the heck I lost 20 pounds. And I remember saying to myself and my friend, actually, I said, if you would have asked me this 3 months ago before I lost the weight, I would have said I would have killed to lose 20 pounds. Why am I not happy? Why do I still not feel enough? Why? And it was because I was still tying my self worth to my results. I was attaching my self worth to my results. And when we do that, when we attach our identity to results, you will always be chasing your self worth because it's always in question. And when it's always in question whether you're worthy enough, if you did enough, if you lost enough, if you look good enough, you're never going to feel worthy. And so you might be wondering, okay, well, Emily, how do I start to shift from feeling not enough to enough? The really good news is you can start by doing something so simple. You can start to practice from shifting from I'm enough, not enough to enough through journaling. And it's something that I know not a lot of moms are always quick to do, right? Because the one of the first things that will come up is I don't have time, right? Like I don't have enough mental energy. I don't have the mental bandwidth to do that. But what I want to say to you is what is it going to cost you to continue to feeling not enough? How do you show up for your family and your kids when you constantly feel like you're not enough, right? And I know for me, it was costing me big time. It was like, okay, I lost the weight. I thought I was going to be a better mom. I thought I was going to have more energy. And I did. Yeah. Like, yes, I did have some more energy, but I, it didn't solve the deep root of it, of me actually feeling enough. And so I decided that I had to do something about this. And so I started journaling. And one of my coaches said to me that it's actually pretty simple. Even though it's simple, it doesn't mean that it's easy. Okay. Even though a process is simple, it doesn't mean that it's easy. Actually, a lot of times the process is harder and it feels way more uncomfortable, but it's a simple process. Self love or self worth is just self love built over time. And so it's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to just magically be like, oh, I'm worthy. And if you start to write that down and say, I'm worthy, I'm more than enough, it might feel super uncomfortable and your brain might just be like BS, BS, BS. And so it takes some time to do that. That's why affirmations don't really, they help, but we got to go deeper than that. If you really want this shift and you really want to feel enough, you got to go deeper. And it does require uncomfortable work, but it doesn't mean that you have to work harder at losing weight. It doesn't mean that you have to do more things at home. It actually probably means the opposite. It actually probably means doing less. I know that sounds counter intuitive, but it's actually really true. So, what I do is I have a journal and I'm on Zoom right now. So if I ever put this on YouTube, you can see it. But I start to, at the end of the day, or sometimes the next morning, depending on where I'm at, I will write down something, at least one thing that I accomplished. So I will focus on something that I accomplished and I don't focus on the things that I didn't get done. And that just starts to prime your brain for that self worth that you are enough. And then I will write down something how I added value to the world. And it doesn't have to be anything grand. Like for me today, it could be recording this episode. Or another day, it could be I made lunch, I packed lunch for my kids, right? And this just helps to prime your brain for contribution, giving value and contribution and meeting your need of significance in a really positive way. And then the kicker one, the big one at the end is who you identify as, right? I am. And you use words that feel empowering, that you want to assume that identity. And so when I started, I used words like, I can do hard things. I am brave. I am strong. And it might sound so simple and silly, but over time, you will absolutely build self love for yourself. And by doing that, you then really start to believe that you are worthy. And one of my favorite things that I also will say too, and if you want to just start here, if you feel like this is, too overwhelming, or you're just not there yet, and that's totally fine. Everyone is on their own timetable of growth. Okay. So there's no judgment. However, I would really encourage you to do something like one of these tips, whether you are doing journaling and answering those three questions. But one of the things that I also would write down, I would write down, I am loved. I've always been loved and I always will be loved, especially if you believe in, God, source, universe, something more than what we are. I believe in God, but whatever you guys believe in, is that you were always loved and you always will be. There's never a question of that. And so that was something that also has really served me too, is just knowing that I've always been loved and I always will be loved, because the greatest fear that we have of humans is not feeling loved. That's the self-worth and not having that unconditional love. I mean, think about it. If you look to any friends or family that you know that have stayed in terrible, toxic relationships, and you're like, why? Like, this guy's a jerk. And it's because we have this fear of losing love. And so it's not like that there's anything wrong with them. It's just, it's innate in us that we have this fear of losing love. And actually, when babies are born and if they don't get love, they'll die. It's failure to live because they're not getting that essential need. It's not a want, it's a need. And so this is such a beautiful, beautiful way to start to really build your self-worth, is just building self-love for yourself over time. And it can feel really uncomfortable and it can feel daunting, and your brain might try to come up with all the things of, oh, I don't have time for this. But I just want you to really think about, how is this costing you of not always feeling enough, right? How are you showing up? Are you always burnt out? And when you're burnt out, how does that affect the relationships that you have with your family? I know for me, when I was always exhausted and burnt out from not feeling enough, I was so short tempered with my kids. I definitely was not self regulating. Didn't learn that till maybe like a year ago. And it just like, it wasn't working. And everyone in the house was always reacting. No one was self regulating. And it just wasn't the life that I envisioned for myself. And so just ask yourself, what is it costing you if you continue to feel not enough? And imagine what your life could be if you did feel enough. How would you show up in your relationships with your children, with your spouse, with your friends? How would you show up for yourself, right? What would that look like? And I got to tell you, that has been so freeing. And I'm still working through it with the other part of my life, my business life. But when it comes to my body and how I feel about my body, I've definitely repaired that self love for my body. That doesn't mean, guys, I want to tell you, it does not mean that I love when my thighs touch each other, especially on humid days. Doesn't mean that I love the extra skin. It doesn't mean that I love when I see the cellulite in the mirror at the gym, or when my workout pants roll up or roll down, whatever. It doesn't mean that I love that. I just feel enough. I know that if I lose weight or gain weight, that's not going to change who I am as a person. And um, I will say, last year at this time, I was feeling really great with my body, and I was like, okay, I'm worthy, right? Doesn't matter the size of the scale, or the size of the scale, the number on the scale. And then I got adult adult acne, and I was devastated. I was so upset. I felt so like not beautiful. I really struggled, and I was embarrassed. I felt, I stopped filming myself as much. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, what? I just did all of this work to feel worthy enough with my body. I stopped tying self-worth to the size of my body. But what I didn't do is that I didn't go a deeper level, and I still was tying my self-worth to what I looked like in a different way. Not the size of my body, but what I looked like physically. And I know that might sound a little confusing, but I think you guys get it. Like, you get it. And it was because as a kid, I was always commented on my looks. And I think a lot of women are. I think a lot of girls are. And I even find myself, and I try to catch myself whenever I see girls. And yeah, like, I love to, I like cute clothes. I like cute outfits. That's just something I love to be creative with. And so I do, yes, I do comment, but I've really tried to limit myself on commenting on what they look like, and just, celebrating, like, oh, wow, look how brave you are. Decided to try out this new sport. Like, wow, that takes such bravery and courage. And I find that I do this with my kids too. Even though I don't have girls, I want to be super, super intentional with how I speak to my children, and the identity that I'm putting on them, because I'm their mom. They trust me, they love me, And when we're children, a big part of our identity is shaped by the people we're around, the people that we trust. So our family, our friends, and our teachers. And so I am super, super intentional when I'm speaking to my kids. Actually, guys, this is a little side note, but Benny came home one day after school last week and said, Mom, am I selfish? And I said, Oh, what do you think? And he didn't know what selfish is. And I said, Well, a selfish person, and I tried to say it in a very simple way, a selfish person really only just thinks about themselves. And so I said, Benny, I wonder, would you be considered selfish when you help out with your baby cousin Jude, right? When you help take care of him and play with him and do things with him? And he's like, no, a selfish person wouldn't do that. And so I started asking him questions of things that he does in his real life. And so it was funny because I'm showing him all the different ways that he's not selfish and how kind he is and compassionate he is. And so, like the rest of the day, because I really harbored on his identity, who he was, right? Like, I was like, you're so kind and you're so compassionate and you're so helpful, because the strongest force in the human personality is to be consistent to who you already think you are. And so your actions will line up with that. He was the most helpful that he's very helpful to begin with, but like he was like, oh, here, mom, let me do this. Mom, let me do this. And it was just like, wow. And he's 6. And so your identity can be shaped or starting to be shaped as young as 6. And so I have been super, super mindful when I'm speaking to my kids, and especially at night when we're just laying in bed and it's dark and we're just looking up at the ceiling. And that's when I feel like I can have more vulnerable conversations with them because, we're not looking at each other eye to eye, and they tend to be a little bit more open with me with sharing with things. And so I will always tell them, like, I love you so much. I love you for how kind you are and compassionate you are and brave you are and strong you are and creative you are and smart. Like, I am literally like loading them up because I know that it's going to happen. Just like Benny, a kid said that he was selfish. I can't even imagine that a 6-year old even knows what that means. She's probably heard it. Someone has probably told her she was selfish. And so I know what's going to happen. And so as a mom, I am going to help prime their brains as much as I can and give them the tools. And um and so yeah, so I know I got a little off. It's not off topic because we are talking about our identity, but I kind of lost where I was before I got off on my rant. But I just, you know what? Before I got on here, I went for my walk. That's when I had my cry sesh, was working through some things, and I just said, I want to record an episode, and I just want to come here and just bring the highest version of me, and whatever comes out, comes out. And I want to serve the women that I'm meant to serve and to reach. And so whatever came out of me today is something that I think who's ever listening was meant to hear. And if you are listening to this and you're just like, oh my gosh, my girlfriend or my mom or my sister, or another woman in your life, if you're like, she needs to hear this, please share this. Like, I want to share all of these insights that I have been learning and growing from, and how it's completely impacted my life in such a better way, where I really do show up in the better version of myself. And it would just be so wrong of me not to share this with you. And I hope that you can share this with women in your life whenever I talk about a topic that really just resonates with you. So, all right. I think we're going to wrap this baby up. And, so I had this conversation, and with a friend who listens to the show. Thank you so much for your support. And we were talking, and she does not count her macros, which is fine. That's just a tool that I utilize, and she doesn't. Nothing wrong with that. And she said the early episodes that I recorded, she was like, I love them so much. And it really made me take a look at, I was like, okay, well, what were the things that I talked about before? And it was a lot of these kind of conversations. And it was a lot of mindset shifts and identity shifts and belief shifts. And I and I said to her, I was like, well, this is what I talk about in my program. Like these are the things that I love to talk about because so many women do come to me for weight loss, but it's so much more than weight loss because I just shared with you how someone like myself could lose 20 pounds and still not feel enough. And so it's one of the things that I love to help women work through things like this of not feeling enough, of feeling burnt out with their to-do list, struggling with investing in themselves or taking time for themselves because of mom guilt. Like these are all topics that I talk about because they come up. And so if you're interested in learning more, if you're just like, this really resonated with you, I am coming out with a new program called Macros for Moms. And yes, I do teach you how to lose weight without dieting. But it's so much more than that. And one of my clients has talked about that quite a bit, where she said, I came to Emily for dieting advice and nutrition advice, and it was so much more than just macros. And her growth has been amazing. She was on the podcast, I think episode 18 or 19. That was diet. I forget the title of it. Going from dieting, yo-yo dieting to something. I can't remember what it was called, but it was a good one. So if you want to hear from a client that I've worked with, go to episode, I think it's 18 or 19. Um, but yeah, this is why I keep showing up, even when it gets really hard, even when I feel so uncomfortable. I just have this passion in me to serve you and to help women feel empowered in their life. And um, like I said, most women come to me for weight loss, but I give them what they want, right? I guess I sell you on what you want, but I give you what you really need. And it's a mix of both for sure. So, anyways, I am going to be launching my program, Macros for Moms, in the next couple weeks. And I am only going to be taking 20 gals. The reason why, because I just want this to be super intimate, and it's the first time that I'm really um, releasing this program in this way. And I just want to make sure that I am serving you. And yeah, so we're going to keep it to 20. And if you want to be the first one to be notified when the doors are officially open for Macros for Moms, please just opt in. I will put the link in the show notes, and you can also find the opt in for my priority list for Macros for Moms on my Instagram, the link in the bio. You will see that there. And I also have a freebie that's available, macro starter kit. So if you've been following along and you heard that I lost my 20 pounds with macro counting without dieting, and I could still eat dessert every night, and you're interested in learning more, there's an opt-in for that as well. And I can also link that into the show notes too. It's just a 5 easy step process that I got started with macro counting without feeling a lot of overwhelm. So, all right. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I'm always so grateful. And that will never be something that I take lightly. And remember, life is always happening for you. And I have a special guest on coming up in the next week or two. Kimberly, I'm super, super excited. She talks about organization and how to organize your living space. And we had a really good talk. It was more than just organization, and you can learn from her, and I'm really excited. So that will be in the next couple weeks, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you guys next week.